All right, so let me ask you this. Coming from Chicago was an emotional experience. You packed up everything to move here. Told you had a job, not quite sure where you're going to live, didn't really know anybody other than Alex. Describe the experience. What was it like moving here, and what was it like working with me?
The most important thing, I think, that stands out for me from working with Wade, moving from another state can be really unsettling. Moving somewhere that you are not familiar with and not familiar with the communities or the schools was an exceptional challenge, moving from out of state. And I felt really comfortable working with Wade because I felt like he held our hand through every step of the process and repeatedly made me feel like he was looking out for our best interest, that he had the answers to all the questions that we asked, and if he didn't, he was willing to be resourceful enough to find the answers for us. He gave us a plethora of options and choices, spent a great deal of time working with us before we even pulled the trigger on the home purchase. And that made us feel so much more comfortable packing up our children and packing up our home and moving all the way across the country.
I'd have to agree, from the first time that we had an initial interview with Wade, it really took a lot of the unknowns out of the equation, and I was comfortable that we had the right realtor and that we were going to get not only the right advice in terms of a home and where we would ultimately live, but really other things that go together with where you live, what the neighborhood is like, where people go out to eat, where people go hiking, where people go skiing, just anything you ever really wanted to know about living in a community was made available to us, and we weren't short of questions, that's for sure.
Sometimes it was even just the simplest thing, like we really liked a home that we saw on the other side of the highway, and Wade was honest enough to say, this is a great home for the money, this would be a good home for you, but what you need to consider is how far a distance your children would need to ride their bikes to access the majority of children that will be going to their elementary school and middle school. And that was something that we would not have even thought of, being so new to the area.
Absolutely, Wade has complete expertise in this whole Columbine Valley marketplace, and that's really you can't put a price on that. There never was a point in time where I didn't have confidence that he didn't have the right answer for whatever question he posed. Absolutely, I agree.
And when it was time to pull the trigger on the purchase of a home, we found the absolute perfect one for us. It had 98% of everything on our wish list, and Wade knew our wish list inside and out. He found us just the right fit for our budget, and we couldn't be happier.
I think the reason he found us the right house was because he's such a great listener. And through the introductory call, from the market tour, if you remember, he did a lot of listening. He let us do the talking, and he soaked it all in and processed everything that we said, or almost everything we didn't say was also equally important to him. And I think that helped him ultimately know exactly what we were looking for. And when it came down to really narrowing our search, I had no doubt when he'd call us up and say, I found a house, I think you should see this. It really went a long way, because we had eliminated so many aspects of homes that we would not find interesting.
Absolutely. And this was only the second home we had ever bought, so we weren't home buying virgins per se, but we did get quite the lesson from Wade. He did not stop at pulling up carpets and looking at walls and bringing us into basement utility rooms, and we got quite the lesson, and I know that I learned a lot from Wade during the process.
So what was the highlight? Was there a highlight? Was there a moment that you remember most that stands out through the whole experience that when you look back 5 years from now, you're still going to remember?
What really stood out for me was in the very beginning, when we had our very first communication with Wade by phone and expressed an interest in moving to the Littleton or Centennial areas. We didn't know anything about the areas. We couldn't even picture where downtown Littleton was on the map. And what stands out for me is that Wade had us open up our laptop and pull up Google Maps, and took probably 75 minutes to walk us through where everything on the map was, and said, do you see Bowles? Now do you see Santa Fe? Do you see where the road forks and how that's downtown Littleton? And He took so much time to walk us through the area so that we could understand what we were looking at.
I actually remember what we were looking at. The only resource we had was the map of the school districts, because you had done so much legwork and you spoke to so many of the school administrators, and so we told him, all we have in front of us is a colored map of the school district boundaries for Littleton Public Schools. And he says, great, let me get my laptop, go on the web, and he actually pulled that exact same PDF up and was able to walk us through the dynamics of each neighborhood by looking at the same map, and that really was a great sign that we had found the right person to work with.
That really stood out for me, that Wade was willing to spend that much time with us, having never even met us face to face. The fact that our Illinois home had not even sold yet, and he was willing to spend and invest that kind of time and energy in us.
Well, if you recall, he also invested an entire day's worth of time when we drove out here to meet him. We met him for breakfast, and we got the grand tour. I mean, I think it was 8, 9, 10 hours with our children in the back seat. And he was very good in accommodating 4 people that had just traveled across the country, were very anxious, and he really set the tone for a very meaningful, informative day. And we saw everything we really needed to see. And I really felt at the end of the day that we had a great sense of, what we were going to be faced with when it came to executing on a home purchase.
I certainly think that all 4 members of our family were smitten with Wade after that marathon 10-hour day of looking at homes, but we only had 1 day to spend, and his understanding of that really went a long way for us. It was really helpful for us in pulling the trigger.
I was thinking from a transactional perspective.
Yeah. Okay.
What I'd like to mention is that at no point in time was I in the dark as to what was the next item in the process. What really stood out for me was I like to be well informed. I like to know what's going on. I'm very inquisitive, and when you're buying a home, you really need to take the lead from someone who is the expert, and Wade certainly is the expert in that department. But he was very understanding that every single time I had a question, he would answer it very effectively. It's very clear that he was very knowledgeable on every aspect of the transaction, whether it was from the initial inspection of the house, to the formal property inspection, to the appraisal, from a purchase and sale agreement, what you signed, when, how you respond to the realtors, and he was able to adapt and adjust to every situation to make it a completely smooth process for us. And at no point in time did I ever feel that I was not completely in the know as to what was going to happen next, what we could expect, what could happen, what could not happen, and what could have been 10 times more stressful was not, because of the way he walked us through the process.
Yes. He has excellent communication skills.